We grant the extension of time in respect of the finding of contempt in Leeds Crown Court and allow the appeal against that finding for the detailed reasons set out in the judgment, essentially because the process was flawed.
The courtroom was tense, every breath heavy, every eye locked on the judge who was about to deliver a ruling that could shake the nation. Outside, crowds had gathered, supporters waving banners, chanting and demanding justice. And at the very center of this storm was one man, Tommy Robinson. Love him or loathe him, his case had become a symbol of something far greater than one individual. It had become a battle over the future of free speech in Britain. And today, against all odds, the judge delivered a ruling that shocked the nation. Tommy Robinson had won. For years, Robinson has been one of the most polarizing figures in the UK. To his critics, he represents division, anger, and controversy. But to his supporters, he is a symbol of defiance, a man unafraid to speak out when others stay silent, a fighter standing up against what they see as censorship and double standards in society. His journey has been one of constant battles with the law, with the media, with politicians, and with powerful institutions determined to silence him. But today's ruling changed everything. It wasn't just a personal victory, it was a seismic moment for free expression in Britain. The case at hand was no ordinary trial. It wasn't about whether you agreed with Robinson or despised him. It was about whether free speech itself could survive in a climate where public pressure, political influence, and legal restrictions seemed to grow tighter every single day. Robinson had argued that he was being unfairly targeted, that his right to speak freely was being eroded by a system that was determined to make an example out of him. And for once, a court of law listened. A judge listened, and in that moment, the tide turned. The ruling sent shockwaves through the establishment.
We're just waiting for Tommy to come out. We were in the press gallery. Surprise, we actually had a pro-free speech judge. I'm going to explain exactly what happened because we're just waiting for Tommy to come out. But essentially, the prosecution wanted to do a gagging order. They wanted to ban everybody, including Tommy, from discussing the case. But the judge said that no, this is a free speech country.
Legal experts scrambled to analyze what it meant. Politicians fumbled for words, and media commentators were left divided. Some said it was a disgraceful outcome that would embolden voices of hate. Others said it was long overdue, a rare recognition that free speech must be protected even when it is messy, uncomfortable, or unpopular. But for Robinson's supporters outside the courtroom, none of that mattered. To them, this was proof that the system had finally been forced to acknowledge what they had believed all along, that he had been wronged, that justice had been skewed, and that free speech was worth fighting for. As Robinson stepped out of the courthouse, the crowd erupted. Cheers, applause, chants of his name. He raised his arms high, his face marked with a mix of exhaustion and triumph. For years, he had been branded a villain, a criminal, a figure of ridicule in mainstream circles. But now, in that moment, he stood as a victor. Cameras flashed, microphones crowded around him, and yet his expression carried something deeper, a recognition that this battle was about more than himself. This ruling forces Britain to confront uncomfortable questions. Where is the line between freedom of speech and hate speech? Who decides what is acceptable to say and what must be silenced? And most importantly, is the law being applied equally to everyone, or are some voices being punished more harshly than others simply because of who they are or what they represent? These questions have haunted the UK for years, but today they were dragged into the open with a force that could not be ignored.
Unfortunately, in a country that doesn't believe in free speech, being a citizen journalist, this place is an occupational hazard. It's ridiculous. I've never been convicted by a jury. Every one of my convictions have been handed down to me by judges. The lucky thing with this...
The judge's decision was not simply about one man's words. It was about the principle that speech, no matter how controversial, must be protected within a democracy. For without free speech, how can there be free debate? Without free debate, how can there be accountability? And without accountability, how can there be justice? Whether one agrees with Robinson's views or not, the ruling underscored that silencing voices through legal persecution is a dangerous path, one that threatens the very foundations of democracy. Of course, the backlash was immediate. Social media exploded with outrage from those who felt this decision legitimized dangerous rhetoric. Commentators accused the court of opening the door to extremism. Activists warned that this ruling could fuel division in communities already on edge. But on the other side, free speech advocates hailed it as a long-awaited correction, a moment where the law recognized that the principles of liberty must apply to everyone, not just those with acceptable or fashionable opinions. And isn't that the true test of free speech? Not in protecting the voices we agree with, but in defending the ones we despise. Because once you allow the state to silence one person for their words, you hand over the power to silence anyone. This is why the courtroom victory was so significant. It reminded Britain that democracy is not built on comfort. It is built on conflict, on argument, on clashing ideas. It is built on the belief that truth can only be found when voices are allowed to speak, even when they are unpopular. For Tommy Robinson, this ruling may mark the most important moment of his life.